What's over there? A pile of things that's been living in a corner for years? There are many reasons why we hold on to piles like that. And in this video, we're going to talk about one of those reasons: shame. I'm Dara. I help people live a more minimalist lifestyle so they can focus on what matters most without getting overwhelmed along the way. If you'd like to live a simpler life, stay tuned for more videos like this one. We often talk about feeling guilty if a friend has given you a present that you didn't want to keep, or a deceased relative left you something and you really want to give it away. It's one of the reasons we keep so much stuff that we don't want and that we don't need. In addition to guilt, shame is also a perpetrator of us not letting things go. In this video, we're going to talk about the difference between guilt and shame, talk about how shame holds us back, what I call piles of shame, and how to let go of these piles. I'll quote Brené Brown here. Shame is a focus on self, while guilt is a focus on behavior. Shame is I am bad, whereas guilt is I did something bad. While we certainly feel guilty about donating the scarf our mom made us, we can get over that. And we don't think we're a bad person, we just feel guilty. But we may hold on to things like rejection letters from colleges, from art schools, from jobs, and have felt less than because of it. We've felt shame. In those cases, we're not feeling guilty, but we're holding on to something so much bigger. So how does shame hold us back? Well, shame is a showstopper. It's so deep that we often don't even know it's there. We may not even realize that it's the cause of our actions, or in the case of minimalism, our inaction. Sometimes it's why we don't start or continue our downsizing projects, or why we never ask for help, because inside we know we don't want anyone to see what's beneath the surface. Shame is a demotivator, and it's often hidden. And as you know, it's really difficult to overcome things that are hidden. So what are piles of shame? I see these all of the time in my clients' homes. And I could tell you there's some of the toughest stuff to deal with. Piles of shame are groups of materials or objects that we hold on to because we feel bad or shameful about them. Sometimes these are the things we hold on to most tightly. And sometimes it's the stuff we actually forget is even in our home. This stuff, it might be hidden because we don't want to see it, but we haven't let go of these blockages that are preventing us from just dealing with them once and for all. So while these often comes in like groups or bins or boxes or piles, sometimes the shame spans across an entire room, an attic, or garage, or even someone's entire home. I'll give you an example of when I first recognized that there are piles of shame in people's homes. I was working with a client. She was downsizing to move to a different state, and we were going through her kitchen, and everything had been going well so far. I saw just a box sitting there, a big box on the floor, and I asked what was in it, and you could just tell, I could tell by the look on her face that she felt a lot of shame. But we had been working together, and she opened up to me about it, and it turns out she had ordered an entire set of like pots and pans, and it came to the house and it wasn't what she wanted or needed. Okay, that happens to everybody. And she missed the deadline to return it, which has also happened to a lot of us. We kind of kick ourselves about it, but that was 2 years prior to this moment. And every time she looked at it, she thought about how badly about herself she felt. She didn't feel guilty. She felt shame. And I had asked her, oh, have you thought about donating or selling? And it's like she couldn't move past her shame. She knew that those were options. She knew that there were easy ways to get rid of this, but she, deep down inside, kind of wanted to punish herself and remind herself that she had done this, that donating or selling was giving herself an easy way out. So sometimes our piles of shame take the form of punishment, even though we know how to move on from them. Needless to say, after working through this, it really lifted a weight, and she was able to donate those to somebody in need. How do we overcome these piles of shame? Well, the first step is to identify them. That's actually a very difficult step. You have to identify them in your home. You might have them hidden somewhere in your home. You might even be storing them outside of your home or in an auxiliary space like a shed or an attic. So make sure to identify them first and really be real about it. Like, don't pretend that it's not a pile of shame and just think of it as other stuff. No, if you feel that sense inside and you know what that feeling is, it might be a pile of shame, and I would suggest erring on the side of assuming that it falls into that category. You don't have to be experiencing like extreme shame as long as it's something that really does make you feel bad about yourself. When those feelings come up, you know it should be in this category. Then you're gonna want to unpack them physically before unpacking them emotionally. You're not getting rid of them, but you really wanna look through things because sometimes we see them as this monster, this like singular object. But if you really looked through the papers you were keeping or some of the objects that you had labeled a certain way, they become more real, they become tangible. You start to look through them and touch them and feel them and experience them physically, and then you move on to kind of unpack what the emotional weight is. The third step is sort of optional, and this is part of the emotional unpacking. This may be where you want to take another step and either journal about it, talk to someone about it, talk to your therapist about it, talk to a family member about it. Don't just leave it as like an emotional unpacking in your mind that's really just you thinking about it, pushing it away, like really delve into it. The fourth step is to think about what the logical, practical steps you need to take to let this item go. You have to get through all the emotional stuff first, and you don't have to immediately get rid of it. Just sort of break it down. Again, make it tangible in a way, make it real life stuff. Like, okay, these rejection letters, well, they simply can go in a recycling bin. That's really easy. For some of the things we have, you might be looking to different donation centers, somebody you can give it to. Might be paring down what you have in that category to something more manageable. And then the fifth step is to act on that. And I like to separate those two out, just sort of like the other steps were really specific. If you try to address it all at once, it can be really overwhelming against something that's already overwhelming. So really break them down into these steps, and if you need days in between the steps, take the days you need. Addressing piles of shame is one of the most difficult aspects of minimalism, mostly because we don't even know that they exist. Take the time now to explore where these piles of shame might be lurking in your home and take the first step. For more information about minimalism and making your life easier, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to be notified when a new video releases. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like so I know that you're listening.